Do you get a sense at this stage of the game that central banks now want to pursue CBDCs and why?
So if you think about the impetus of Bitcoin, actually, if you start back to the story of Bitcoin, the idea is a lot more focused on global transfer, global instant transfer, right? Because if you think about it in the Hong Kong context, I can do instant transfer right now. I don't need Bitcoin for that. I just need a faster payment system, right? So, or I can use a series of payments apps to do that are non-blockchain, non-Bitcoin, non-Ether, to do an instant payment within a market. It's actually no longer, you could even say, a user need, as far as I'm concerned, because the use case has already been met. The use case that is not met is the international use case, and it's not met probably on multiple levels, both you could say on a retail level and secondly on a wholesale level. So the international transfer case. From a central bank perspective, at this point, looking at the international transfer need, we are looking at building a platform specifically, let's say within my operation, we're trying to build something called the Bridge, which is a platform to facilitate such transfers between markets much quicker, with full use of the banking system. So the banking system would be participants on the platform. The technology is simply different from what the past technology would be. And the idea is that the central banks come onto the platform and issue indeed their CBDC, so that the transfer can be facilitated to be on what is called the PVP, a payment versus payment, an instant basis.
I think we all recognize in this room the necessity of those AML laws. I mean, they exist because people use the financial system to launder money from terrible sources of activity. But in TradFi, AML is a real mess. I mean, it's not effective. The vast majority of flows don't get detected or stopped. Is there a chance that using blockchain technology, CBDCs, that we can still have AML rules and enforce them better?
So I think that's the million-dollar question, right? So the problem is that things need to be balanced with privacy. This is very important. And if you think about it in the blockchain world, it's often positioned in some, I think people are not sophisticated enough about what the words mean. So pseudo-anonymous to me doesn't mean anonymous at all. It means that once the identity of that wallet is known, the identity behind that wallet, you can actually go back to all historic transactions of that wallet. So once you know that's my wallet, you can go take a look at whatever I've been doing. I mean, slightly dangerous, right? So it's okay as long as it works. It's not okay once my identity is linked to it, right? That's the same thing as saying, you know, all my Visa data for the last 30 years are visible on a chain the moment you find out that it was me, right? So there's some danger in this. And that's why I think pseudonymous makes it look like it's anonymous. So it makes you think you're in a better position. But I'm just saying, once you attach the identity to it, it's actually worse.
I want to ask Luc about the necessity of CBDCs existing to make asset tokenization on blockchain feasible for whether it's for Fidelity or for a bank to handle. Essentially, if you're dealing with securities, you then need some sort of digital cash settlement leg, I would assume. So you must be looking quite closely at what B.I.S. and central banks are doing. So maybe you can give us a sense of, you know, if the industry is able to move forward without them, or if you are kind of linked to these developments.
I see them as literally two separate streams, because if I look at digital asset, one way to look at them is to look at digital asset as an asset class, and that could be focused on crypto, as we go along, maybe more security token and other type of token. And there is a digital asset as an infrastructure where we want to upgrade our system to be able to onboard stablecoin, CBDCs, and to start making the whole process more efficient, for instance, in terms of settlement. So what is happening in the world of CBDCs has an impact on both sides. On the side of the asset class, what CBDC and regulation are doing, they are actually forcing all the industry to look at the development, start onboarding this technology, playing with it. There's a lot of pilots that are going on to figure out where are the gaps in the current operating system. So actually regulation and CBDC are to some extent fostering or encouraging us, incentivize us to invest in the same technology infrastructure that we need for digital asset as an asset class. The other angle, looking at infrastructure, it's a very different proposition because here we're not talking about putting together a fund that we might be able to generate revenues with in the next 6 or 9 months. We're talking about reshuffling the whole organization. And that's right now, it's quite a big challenge, right? Because most of the industry now is very much focusing on core business. It's about cost saving, optimization. So the timing might not be the best to say, hey, by the way, I've got an idea to optimize our whole infrastructure, but this is going to cost us quite a bit of investment. But in both cases, the CBDC is a positive development. It is helping us.
So let's go back to this question about you, and I'm sure all the other firms are having a similar conversation. Financial institutions will act when their clients are clamoring for something, right? You're led by the clients and where they want stuff to happen. With crypto having its big wipeout at the end of, throughout actually most of 2022, you're the tiger, very sharp teeth, nasty claws. What was the, how is that conversation changing? Is there still momentum for creating these sort of new rails, or listening to what, are the clients still interested in doing these things? Or is the conversation shifting? You just get a sense of, a temperature check on where we are now with demand within TradFi for building these rails.
So I don't think that what has happened in 2022 has significantly impacted our agenda or the agenda of our investor. If anything, it has slowed down things. But you can imagine that most of the institutional investor, be it as an investment or as an infrastructure, they have been planning for quite a few years. And an institutional investor anywhere would not be interested in investing in something too exotic. So the plan hasn't changed. The demand is still there. But there is one point that is interesting that you mentioned is like typically the industry has been driven by what clients want, right? It's normal, right? You want to get an understanding of where are the pain points and find a solution. Now, the interesting part when it comes to digital asset is that to a large extent, you need to test the market, because most of our clients don't necessarily have an understanding or an appreciation of what digital asset can be doing for them. And by the way, when I talk about digital asset, is not just crypto. From crypto, it could be utility token, NFT, stablecoin, CBDCs, or security token. They don't necessarily have an appreciation. So I think that in the case of digital asset, the innovation need to be coming from the asset manager.
Last question for you, Luc, is biggest lesson from last year?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Where are we with the potential for DeFi to, I guess, really challenge financial institutions that have traditionally been in the middle of these transactions? Is that going to happen?
I think there's a lot of potential in DeFi still. Based on the on-chain nature. And I want to give you an example of that, right? So the recent fallout with some of the exchanges, some of the bad players, and people attribute that to the centralization of these platforms. And what a lot of the centralized exchanges, including the exchange that OKX runs, have come out to do is proof of reserve. Okay, proof of reserve really is a method utilizing blockchain technology. We actually built this proof of reserve protocol using the Merkle tree. So I'm not a technical person, but what I can explain is that it uses the hash tree technology to verify the assets that clients have put into the exchange. It then also verifies the assets that OKX has in the wallet addresses. And then thirdly, it verifies the ratio, okay, of the assets that OKX has in its wallet addresses and the assets that the customers have put on the exchange. And what does that prove? That proves that OKX has over 100% reserve, meaning that we can fully back up, we're sufficient to basically give back all of our customers' funds should they wish to withdraw from the exchange. Now that is on the blockchain technology, it's decentralized. The protocol itself is open source. It can be audited on GitHub. So that is the power of DeFi, I think.
What is the benefit of that versus in TradFi, a proper Big Four auditing process that also looks at liabilities?
Thank you for that question. It's a very common question as well. So I think we are also working with a lot of the traditional auditors. In fact, we are been discussing a lot and getting them on board to become our auditor at the group level. I think
that'd be great. I want to link what you're saying back to what Benedicte was talking about, which is, you know, the privacy issue, but in the sense that it seems like the information is much more accessible on chain. So is the holdup that they're not looking at all the information, or they don't have access to all the information, or is it that they don't have the ability to understand it because it's something new to them?
And where I see the convergence is number one, I think there's going to be a lot more transparency for the CeFi side, okay? Putting things on chain, actually being open about the assets that we hold, okay? And being able to have users verify the information themselves using third-party tools. This is what OKX has done. On the DeFi side, I think what we're going to see is there's going to be more adoption and more platforms that enables AML, KYC sanctions, even for DeFi protocols, and also better user experience. Part of the reason why OKX is building a DeFi aggregator platform is, you know, aside from the very DGen guys who can really operate those DeFi protocols, it's more difficult for a lot of people, right?
DGen means nerds.
So